Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Hour. I'm your host, Miguel Sanchez. And as you know, I like to talk about business and technology and entrepreneurship and investing. So today I'm going to talk about why, if you are into business, into investing, what you can expect, from my opinion, to see if either person wins the election, right? As a person who was never really involved in politics or cared about politics at all until maybe 5 years ago, I can't even tell you. It was not that long ago. What I learned once I got into the politics and understanding it is it's a huge business opportunity. And when you see people like Trump go from business to politics, there's a reason. It's like networking on another level, right? You're talking about being able to connect with anyone, right? Politicians can connect with anyone. So as business people, we can take advantage of that. And by take advantage, I mean, not in a bad way, but we can, through relationships with politicians, you can get access to people that is very hard for you to get access to without, right? So I'll give you some examples. This is about like really educating people on the opportunity, not just to vote and make sure you start to be a little more civically engaged, but as entrepreneurs, for you to truly understand the benefit of doing so, right? But then also, let's talk about politics. Let me tell you what I think, because I am lucky enough, and like I said, I get meetings with people on both sides, right? I've met the top minorities on the Republican side, and I talk to them like I talk to you if you're my friend, right? And we have real conversations. That's just how I am, and people like me for it because I'm real. I say what I think, right? So what I've seen is, as an entrepreneur, making sure you are understanding of the landscape of the politics in wherever you do business is super important, right? So that's where I would start. If I was anyone trying to do anything, what I would do is first start to understand who's your local, and when I say local government, I'm not talking about the president. The president, it's very rare. You need to be super high level and have been doing this for many years to be able to get the president to do anything for you or help you in any way, really. So where you need to start is in the local level, right? The local level. And I did it by mistake, right? So I'm going to give you my story. I brought my business back to the Bronx because cheap rent, to be honest. I'll say it any day. I got an opportunity for free rent at first, and then it was going to be cheap rent. And it was going to be an opportunity for me to help the borough I was born in, right? So my mentor, who's an entrepreneur, said, look, come up to the Bronx with me, help me figure this out, and I'll give you free space while we're figuring it out. So while I was there, I was one of the first entrepreneurs there. So they started to give me opportunities. One of the first opportunities was to be on stage with Bloomberg because Bloomberg was doing something in the Bronx. So this goes back. Bloomberg was still in office. And he was like, look, you want to go represent us on stage with Bloomberg? He's doing something in the Bronx. I was like, sure, why not? So I meet Bloomberg, right? And I meet a few other local politicians that happen to be there. And that was the first time where I was like, wow, that brought me some attention from people that is very hard to see or meet, right? So and then even externally, like I posted that I was there and people started to reach out, right? So as marketing, so there's something I just heard, and it's awesome. I think you should learn it. It's marketing is everything and everything is marketing, right? So when you think about it, the fact that I was able to be on stage with Bloomberg when he was first coming to the Bronx to talk about all the things that were going to start happening in the Bronx, and I happened to be one of those few people on stage, that was marketing for me without even me understanding that at the time, right? So being in that room, I started to meet these politicians, and then I would see them at more and more things, right? And then again, since I was one of the few minorities in the Bronx doing what I do, which is the technology stuff, they would start to want to pick my brain because I knew something that they didn't. And politicians understand that. They're not experts in everything. They look for people who are. And if you are, you can be very close to a politician because when they need to know something, they're going to reach out to you, right? And that is a huge, huge benefit for your business, right? Like at the end of the day, you benefit a lot because they can connect you with people. So for instance, MetaBronx, I've had Michael Blake on the show. He's a Bronx politician. He connected us to one of the biggest fund managers in New York City for MetaBronx, and the guy has helped MetaBronx for a very long time based on the relationship with Michael Blake. They were college roommates, right? And when we told him what we were doing, he was like, "Oh, that's awesome. I want to help you. Meet Nahal Mehta, his name is. Nahal Mehta, he set up the call, and we've been cool with him forever since. This guy's raising almost $1 billion right now. And we've been talking to him for years because of that relationship, right? And it goes on and on. Amanda Septimo, who this tomorrow may become the councilman of our district, right? And I've known her for many years, about the same, probably actually more than I know Michael Blake and people like that. And the way I met her was they were doing a tour of businesses in the community that were I forget, I guess tech focused. I forget why, but she came into the office with another huge fund manager. And I was again one of the few tech people. So they introduced us. Me and Amanda met. She worked for the congressman at that point, and we just kept in touch. And every time I had a political question, I would ask her. And anytime she had some tech thing that the congressman needed, they would invite me. I would be in meetings with like rooms of like super high important people, and I was the tech expert, right? So that happened without me understanding what I'm telling you now. So why I'm bringing it up is because if you are an entrepreneur or anything in, that's trying to do business or get a better job, whatever it is, I highly recommend you start to become more politically engaged, not just for the business, but also for your community, right? I started to learn a lot by being around them and problems that I did not know existed, and I could put my mind to because I knew things that they didn't. And I could be like, oh, you could do this. And some of those things became implemented. And then, of course, most people know the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez story. If you don't, she worked with me. We were creating companies in the same office. We were working on projects together. She had no idea she was going to be a politician at all. We never even discussed it. And then something happened in her life, and she sat right here, and she told me, I'm running for office. And I was like, really? Wow, amazing. And she told me who she was running against. This guy was the most powerful Democrat in the whole Democratic Party, congressman, I guess, most powerful Democratic congressman. And I was like, wow, so you really think you can win? And she was like, I don't know, but we're going to try. And she asked for advice from me, and she asked me to speak at I spoke at her first ever public appearance, right? And she exploded right out of nowhere. And now she's helping the community. She's like one of us. And I know a lot of people give her crap for, what she says, but she literally is one of us, right? And now she's in politics. And that's another thing. You just never know who's going to be in it. So you got to really understand and learn. And I'm still learning. I'll be honest. All the time, I'm like, I don't know what this means. Like, I'll go, they invite me to sit with Republicans, and I'll tell them what I think. They invite me to sit with Democrats. I tell them what I think. And most of my rich minority friends, it's funny, most of them are Republican, right? So we have very heated arguments about what I think needs to happen, what they think needs to happen. But I think when it comes down to it, you want to have those conversations. You want to be talking to people about how to fix things, right? And of course, not everybody's going to agree with you, right? So, but it's good to have both sides of the equation so you can, have your thoughts, right? So when I have my thoughts and I'm speaking to one of my rich Republican friends, I'm like, yeah, but what about this? And sometimes I'll get them to change a little bit their thought. Most times I don't, but it's still good to be involved and start understanding. So now, how will this election affect you as an entrepreneur, investor, or just a person that's looking for jobs? From my experience, seeing what I've seen so far, depending on what you do, it could affect you a lot. And depending on what you do, it can affect you very little. So I'm in the tech space. So tech is tech, right? It's going to move no matter what. The big thing that I see, though, is depending on who you have the most relationships with, it could benefit you more. So for instance, Obama threw a party on the White House lawn, right? And he wanted community activists and people doing things in the community to come and party with him and meet each other on the White House lawn. And Amanda Septimo, one of the people I told you, she put my name on the list. And then I got invited, right? So then I got to go to the White House, meet all these big people from all around doing things from all across the country because of a relationship that I made years before that. And we kept in contact, and I would help her. She would help me, right? Same with Michael Blake, same with AOC. It takes time, right? But right now, if Hillary Clinton would have been in office right now, I would have probably had a lot more possibilities in that world because I have a lot more Democratic politician friends right now, right? Well, I did back then. Now I have, because I started trying to raise this fund. I started to deal with a lot more minorities with money, and they tended to be a lot on the Republican side. So now I do have a lot of friends who are Republicans. So, but again, there's your political stance. So I'm not going to hide from it. I don't agree with what this guy in office is doing right now. So even if I had an opportunity to go and work with the White House right now, I probably wouldn't, right? So, but that's me. That's me feeling like I don't want to help something like this, right? But that doesn't mean I can't and there's not opportunity in it, right? So, and there has been actually, and I have kind of stayed away because I just don't agree with what's going on, right? With the kids, the Latino kids in cages and stuff like that. I can't co-sign that, right? And I'm doing something right now that people say don't do. You don't want to talk politics with business, but in a way, I think I get where I get because I do that. I'm not really afraid to have a conversation and tell people what I think. I'm not worried about losing business. I'm not worried about, people not liking me. I think if anything, people understanding where you come from make them like you more, right? So these Republicans, they could have been like, oh, I'm not working with Miguel. No, like now they call me all the time and we have real discussions. And one of them, we're working on a project together where they're trying to get mail-in voting to become more of a reality. It didn't happen fast enough for this election, but you're going to start seeing stuff that I'm working on with a few Republicans, a few Democrats. There's a few Democrats in there, but it came to me from a Republican, right? That said, look, I want more minorities involved in this, and you're one of the only ones we could find. So do you want to be involved? And I'm like, yes, I believe in that, right? I believe people should be able to vote by mail. And actually, part of why I want to be involved more is because I'm saying to myself, they may not know how far along technology is because we can definitely vote on our phone. Right now, the technology is there. What needs to happen for that to be a thing? That's where I am now. I'm like, all right, I'll embed myself in those environments and see how far I can push where technology is, because sometimes it's just a lack of understanding and the way you say something is like something clicks, right? Because everybody knows that I think everybody knows the technology is here right now to be able to vote by mail. Will it happen? We will see. So part of what I hope to do is just push however I can. And if it happens, it happens. It might be public, it might not be public. But if I could do something that helps people vote by mail, I believe more people will be voting, and that will help our democracy, right? Doesn't matter who on which side it is, both, we all benefit if that's the case, right? So I'll just come down to like what I believe is going to happen if each one wins, right? So right now, I have a lot of friends who are in data, artificial intelligence, stuff like that. And they are telling me right now the data shows that Trump is going to win, right? And these are people that have predicted. Again, if you don't know what AI is taking data that there's no way the human brain can keep in its brain in itself, and looking at that data in a way that humans can't look at it again, and seeing things, being able to predict things from that data. So my friends in AI are saying Trump is going to win because they see data that people don't see, and they're running their algorithms on it, and they're saying that Trump is going to win. So if Trump wins, what happens for entrepreneurs? Because I'm spending a lot more time with Republicans that own businesses, they will be ecstatic, right? Why is that? Because they're going to pay less taxes. I'm going to tell you a story that I heard a few months ago, right? One of my friends that has a business is a Republican. He called me and he's like, "Oh my God, I love Trump. I love Trump so much." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah. Trump is the man. This is why Trump is the man." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "He just saved me millions of dollars." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "I don't have to pay my employee payroll tax till next year." And I'm like, "Okay, I could see how somebody with a company at your size that could benefit you, but you still got to pay it. So how does that really benefit you?" He said, this is why us rich people, we mess with Trump. He said, by not having to pay it this year, he can take that money and invest it this year. And where are the deals right now? There's deals in everything. So by having an extra however much money right now during the time when the deals are the best, rich people are going to make a killing, right? Because right now, people are worried. People are selling. Businesses are going out of business. People need investment. So for the rich to be able to move money they're going to have to pay next year and use that money to buy up as much as they can right now, huge, huge opportunity for rich people, right? Now for poorer people, I won't say poor, not as much, right? Of course, you may pay a little bit less tax if you have a business. If you don't have a business, you're probably more screwed than if he doesn't win, right? Because from what I've seen, the taxes, working class people pay more tax percent than business owners. That's just the case. And I learned that early, right? I learned that very early when I first started my business, and I realized I was working. So when I had a full-time job, I forget, it's been so long. I think I was paying like 30-40% tax. So I was making a decent salary, but I was coming home with very little percentage of it. And I was like, man, that's a lot of money that gets taken out of my check every week, right? And then one of my entrepreneur mentors was like, "I'm going to hire you. I'm going to pay you less than you make now on the books." Right? So I had a salary at a certain level. He said he was going to hire me, pay me less than my company was paying me, but I would stay with more. And I was like, "How are you going to do that?" He said, "What you're going to do is you're going to set up a company. I'm going to pay you a certain amount a week, but then you're going to be able to write off everything, your car, your gas, your food, movies, video games, dates, whatever you want, anything that be considered business, you could write it off. And then you're going to pay taxes on whatever's left. So I was like, all right, let's try it. And I never went back. Like I saw that and I was like, whoa, that is crazy. The fact that I'm paying less tax. And then over time, I started to make more, because also what owning a business allows you to do is take on more, as much as you want, versus having a job. I was very limited in what I could do because I had to be at that job for 40 hours a week. But when you have a business and the guy's telling you all you got to do is this every week and you're going to make this, and I don't care where you at, you're just going to do it as long as you do the work. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And then I realized I started to make more money and I still was paying less tax than when I had the other job. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. But then as you get higher and higher up, you see different levels of money, you realize like, wow, this tax thing is serious. So for instance, I'm going to give you a breakdown of something I do even right now. And this is something you need to talk to your accountant about. But my company, I have an S corp. So I don't pay myself a salary. I pay myself in dividends. If you look, dividends, the tax on dividends is way less than the tax on a salary. So if you look up how rich people pay themselves, they don't pay themselves in salary because of that. So one thing you can see is with Trump, he's going to lower the dividends percentage, right? Meaning you're going to pay less tax on dividends because why? Him and his rich friends all pay themselves in dividends, right? And you could say, oh, but you do too. Why would you not want that? Because I understand where I come from, they get screwed by that, right? So because taxes not being paid by those level of people means people in my community don't get the things they should be getting, right? So me, of course, I'm doing it too. So sure, I'm part of the problem, but it's not like I'm making $5 million a year and paying $750 in tax, right? I'm still paying a good amount of tax. I pay more tax than probably most people pay in dollars, but percentage wise, it's nowhere near the percent of a full-time employee. Nowhere near. So if you think about it from Trump's perspective of winning, you will benefit. You will benefit if you have a business, if you invest. Why is that? If you invest in real estate, right? Think about it. He's a real estate investor. So of course he's going to take advantage. He's going to help his friends and himself, right? But where it comes back to the one of the videos I made a while ago, which is equity. If you think about it, somebody told me this a long time ago. The three things that get taxed the least are the things that the forefathers were of America. Landowners, real estate. Slave owners, businesses. Investors, right? So those things, an investor, if you're an investor and you make money on your investment, what do you pay? You pay dividends at a lower tax rate than salary. So if you think about how this whole thing is set up, it's set up to benefit the people who own things. Taxes are benefiting the people that own things. They pay less percent tax. And that's where I feel like that needs to change. And it sounds like there's ghost outside. It's so windy out here today that it sounds like I'm being chased by ghosts. But I wonder if you guys can hear that actually. But if you shift over to if Biden wins, what's going to happen? I believe if Biden wins, which the AIs are not saying he's going to win right now. They're saying he's going to lose. So everybody vote. If Biden wins, he's going to start to put a little bit more pressure, for lack of a better word, on businesses to pay more tax, rich people to pay more tax. So you've seen the 50 cents of the world, and the articles, 62% tax if you live in New York. That is not true for most people, right? The truth of how taxes work is you pay the tax based on the tax bracket you're in, right? Which most people understand that, right? What the tax plan that Biden right now is talking about is very high, is 62%, is very high if you make over $400,000 a year, which would definitely put you in the 1%, right? So everybody knows the 1% is the richest 1% in America and the world. If you make over $400,000 a year, you are in those 1%, right? So it's very little bit of people are in the 1%, right? 1% of 7 billion, and that's in the whole world. Let's say 1% of Americans is 350 million Americans, I think, right now. So what's 1%? I think it's like 35,000 people. I don't know, something like that. It's not a lot of people that's going to pay more taxes. But where I get angry, and I get angry at my Republican friends too, is to be selfish about it and say, all right, I'm going to pay more tax. And I'm going to pay more tax. I definitely am if Biden wins. But understanding where I came from. Like, I understand that I came from a place where we had to scrap, right? There was a lot of messed up things where I grew up, right? So if more taxes are being paid, maybe things like college could be free. Maybe communities can have some things that they deserve. Maybe health insurance can be something that people don't have to like worry about, right? So when you think about the tax thing, that's where a lot of the spread happens, right? When I talk to my rich Republican friends and my rich Democrat friends, that's where the split happens, the taxes. They don't want to pay more taxes. And that's where I think about it as a person who comes from where I come from, right? If I didn't, maybe I would think very differently. But the fact that I know the public schools, they take money from, they need money from taxes, and there's all kind of arguments, right? There's arguments around, yeah, but then the government spends our tax dollars and they're corrupt with it. That's a whole nother story, and that's why we need more transparency, and technology will allow more transparency. The scary thing about where this particular administration is they're starting to remove transparency, where I felt like Obama was putting a lot more things in place for transparency, right? And then Trump came in and was just like, no transparency, that's bad for business. And it's only bad for business if you're going to be a dirtbag, right? Like, at the end of the day, if I told you, as a business partner, we're not going to be transparent with each other, don't you think that means I'm going to try to screw you over, right? So part of what I see is if one wins and one doesn't, and again, very controversial subject that I'm not afraid to talk about because I don't have a boss, right? I believe that the current Republican administration, which again, you guys need to vote, whoever's watching this, if you're watching it, because right now the AIs are saying Trump is going to win. And I know I live in New York, so New York tends to go Democrat anyway. But I actually, I still have Jersey roots. So I vote in Jersey. And Jersey's kind of a little bit of a swing, but it mostly kind of goes Democrat, I think. But the further you go down south, the more it's riled up, right? So I have family in the South, right? And they're telling me some scary things. And you saw it yesterday. Actually, yesterday, a bunch of Trump supporters blocked a bridge to stop people from voting. And I'm like, this is the kind of scary thing that you got to voice your opinion on, right? Like, that, if you're calling yourself a patriot, but you don't want people to vote, that's kind of a scary place we're heading, right? So part of it is like, people will say, why are you talking politics on your show? This probably is bigger than politics, right? It's probably like, where's the world heading kind of situation, right? If we can't talk about where the world's heading, what businesses are we going to have, right? Like, at the end of the day, if there's a civil war, it doesn't matter what business you're in, it's going to affect you, right? So I think it's something that people have to talk about. And I've spoken to Republicans that have said, look, this guy's going to do whatever it takes to stay in, because if he doesn't stay in, he's going to jail. And this is multiple Republicans that support the guy, mostly because they pay less taxes. And they believe a lot of things that Republicans believe. So what I've seen, this is the keys that I've seen is, I'm just going to talk about it, whatever. What I've seen on the divide is, when I find people who are on the Republican side, what they believe is there's people who are not working hard enough to make it. And the Democrats let that happen. That's kind of where I see most of the like divide, right? And what I say is, I don't believe people inherently are born and grow up and say, I don't want to do things. What I see happen is, because I work in the Bronx and I work with young people, communities of color, what I believe happens is people are beat down by having to overcome such insurmountable obstacles that eventually they give up. And I'm lucky enough to have overcome those obstacles. So I'm not going to look down on people that didn't, and that's where I have my arguments with the Republicans, right? I'm like, but what about this person? And I can point to individuals, because I'm like, all right, you want to see a real story? Come donate your time to MetaBronx, and I'll show you specific people where it's like, you show me how that person is not working hard enough, but look at their surroundings. It's going to be like them hitting lotto for them to be able to make it, unless things are put in place to help them, right? And right now, I don't really think what the Republicans are going to do are going to help them, right? So to say, hey, and there's another argument I hear a lot. Lil Wayne made it. Jordan made it. 50 Cent made it. Jay-Z made it. How come you can't make it? And that to me is just like a lack of math, right? Like, of course there's going to be somebody who's the best. What about everybody else, right? Like, if you see and you come from these places that like I come from, and maybe some of you watching it, like I remember when I met my partner in MetaBronx, he's a white man. And I told him my story, and he was like, I don't know any white person that has had to do even 10% of what you had to do to succeed, right? So it's called the superhero mentality, right? The superhero, I forget what they call it. But basically, we have to be superheroes to get to where other people are just born into, right? And then it's like, how come you're not working as hard, right? And to me, it's like, that's where I think the divide is. And I'm always up for the conversation. I don't care with who about that, because I can talk for both sides, right? You can't tell me that I didn't work hard enough, right? So, okay, let's move that. But I've seen people who worked hard as me, but they weren't lucky enough to have the family I had, the mom and dad I had, the support system I had, the schools I had, the partnerships I had. So all those things could have been anti-luck for someone else, right? Like, imagine if I would have had, I grew up in a place in the 80s, the Bronx. I went to school in Harlem, had many friends, parents on drugs, parents not around, in jail. If I look at my situation and I think, if any of those things would have happened to me, would I be here right now? Right? And you have to think, probably not, right? Like, I literally needed everything that went my way to go my way to be able to do what I'm doing, right? So you take one piece out, and who knows where you end up, right? So to blame people, especially when you're on the ground like I get to be, and you see the situations where it's like, these kids work hard, but if you get beat down enough, eventually it's a mental health thing where you probably end up giving up. Like if you think about growing up and just seeing obstacle after obstacle, instead of you getting over it, it take you out, and you fix yourself back up, you get back, and it's another obstacle takes you out. Eventually you're like, what am I supposed to do? What can I do? Of course, some people fight until they succeed, but it's not fair that it has to work that way, right? So that's where I go into the politics side, and I'm saying, look, I don't know, because of course there's the Biden side of, oh, but he put people in jail, he did the crime bill, he's people corrupt just like the rest of them. The major difference though right now is, I don't think the racism in America will be as confident if a Biden administration is here. I think he would do things to like squash that instead of like light it on fire. So that's the kind of problem where it's like, it's the whole fascism, race, it's populist, all this stuff where it's like, we're setting ourselves into a weird spot. And I was watching a Star Trek episode the other day. Star Trek, great show, genius show. And there was an alien race where they had paint on one side. It was like half side white, half side black. So everybody on the planet had that. But certain people had the black on this side and the white on this side and the white on this side and the black on that side. So the people who had the white on this side were the superior ones. And the people who had the white on this side were the slaves and the inferior ones. So the Star Trek people, they come across them and they're fighting, and they're like, what are you guys fighting about? And they're like, well, look at them. They're inferior to us. And they're like, you guys look the same. And they're like, no, look at what colors on each side. And it's just like, what's smart about that show is like, that's what's happening now. But they made it so apparent right there where it's like, really? You're looking at each other. The color of what side is the color on your face is the reason why people have to be oppressed and not oppressed. And it's just really smart. And right now, and what happens in that episode is they wipe each other out. That planet destroys itself because the hate was just too much. They couldn't get over the fact that they were the same. They just hated each other so much that they blew each other up. And that episode, I'm watching it and I'm like, this is what's happening right now in America. Like, and if you think Trump 2020, man of war 760. Hey, I mean, I'm always willing to have a conversation. If you're still watching, why are you supporting Trump? I'm definitely always interested in understanding that. From what I see is people that are religious tend to support Trump, which to me is pretty weird because the guy's pretty evil. But I just like to understand it. If you're still on, and of course somebody always calls when I'm on the show, but to me, I just think about the politics of the world, right? And it's happening all over the world. There's like a movement of so the banks, of course, banks. There's something going on with banks right today. I've been hearing stuff about banks today where it's like, uh-oh. And we could be heading into some crazy time, right? They're saying, depending on who wins, there could be a lot of drama. They're boarding up the inner cities. To me, it just coincides with what the AI people I know are saying, that Trump is going to win and people are not going to be happy because just like last time, the popular vote went way on the side of Hillary, but the electoral college votes went to Trump. And now with the online vote, I mean the mail-in voting, people are saying they're not going to count the ballots and all that stuff. So we're heading into some scary times. That's why I wanted to have the conversation. I hope it'd be a little more interactive. Trump 2020 guy is the only one who said anything, and that's something I see. I just think the Trump supporters are much more active and voice use their voice more, and look at it however you want, but marketing is everything and everything is marketing, right? I believe, and this is something I've said a lot, I believe the Republican Party is better at marketing. And why is that? Because they run businesses. Most Republicans come from business, right? So they understand marketing, and they do it better than the Democratic Party. They just do. It's just, you see it all the time. And it's like things like calling the movement Bernie Sanders and the AOCs of the world were working on democratic socialism. I think that was probably one of the worst marketing decisions ever. To put the word socialism in that brand destroyed it before he even had a chance. Another bad job of marketing is defund the police. That's not good marketing. And it's not even what they tend to do. They're not saying take all money away from police. They're saying reconfigure how the money's spent so it's not spent in a way that keeps reinforcing what's happening right now. So part of why I always connect politics and business is marketing is everything. Everything is marketing, right? And politicians get the most eyes because of what they're doing. They're trying to help the community. But if they don't understand marketing, just like a business, right? So that's another big thing. And I've had multiple politicians on the show. When you run for office, it's like starting a business. It's basically the same thing. And I've had a few that I've broken that down with them, and they explain it. It's really, really similar. You have to understand your target audience. You have to understand how to get them to believe what you believe, and you have to get them to do something. With a business, you want them to buy. With a politician, you want them to vote, right? Then you have that one day when they can vote. Tomorrow is going to be the day they can vote. So if you think it may be harder, actually. It may be harder. I think it is. I think it is. But it's so important. And the more I got involved and the more I started to just understand the landscape, the more it got important for everything. Everything that I do, you start to see like, oh, there's a political connection here that could really help this idea, this possibility, right? And to have the people to reach out to and say, hey, who do you know that can help with this? If it's a politician, they're so connected that it's like, oh, you should speak to this person. And then when they introduce you, you come with a different level of interest. All right. So Ricardo Hernandez says, I think people have to remove the person from the equation and focus on what policies are important to them. This is true. The problem is, again, branding. I don't think people really even understand what policies people are. I don't. The only thing is, again, the branding. What people remember is you're going to have to pay 62% in taxes. When most people are not going to have to pay that, that's all they think about. So most people that are going to support Trump that are not making over 400,000, and they're voting for him because they believe they are. That is marketing. That's a lack of marketing on the Democratic side to not explain that. They're letting the Republicans and even the 50 Cents of the world, the little Waynes, go out and say this, and they're miseducating the public on how this is going to work. Of course it benefits them. They do make over $400,000 a year. So they don't want it. But the fact that they use that platform, their platform, to miseducate the public, that is wrong to me. And that's why, I don't have as many followers as them. And I probably never will, because entrepreneurship will never be as popular as sports and entertainment, sadly. They're using their platform to miseducate and to be selfish in a way, I think, right? If it were me, at least explain it. Like, don't just say, hey, I'm voting for Trump because I don't want to be 25 cents. But don't say, hey, all of you you'll be all right. I'm just not doing it. But by doing that, of course they're using their influence to sway the public, and probably what it does more than anything is I don't think it makes people vote for Trump more or Biden. I just think it makes people not vote. And I posted today, I posted on the podcast today, I posted my boy Lance James, who I met when I did a TEDx talk a few years ago now. And he was talking about how news makes your brain react in a way where it makes you do things that you probably wouldn't do. So voting and not voting right now, you see all this misinformation and people feeling like, oh, fake news, this, fake news, that basically benefits people who don't want you to vote. So when you think about which party doesn't want you to vote, I just told you about a bunch of Trump supporters blocking a bridge so people wouldn't vote. Because basically what happens is Republicans right now in this point in history, and this I'm going to tell you something that's super interesting that I heard from a Republican. Republicans at this point in history are not the majority, right? So the least amount of least amount of Democrats vote, the more likely a Republican will win. So they're doing whatever they can, voter suppression, all these different things, whatever you believe. If you're a Republican, you're cool with it. If you're a Democrat, you're not. But a Republican has said to me, and this you see this a lot from minorities that support Republicans, that Republicans were the original Democrats, right? People supported Republicans were the minority support, and then somehow it switched. I don't remember why, but I remember when I first started meeting Black and Hispanic Republicans, I'd be like, wait a minute, I don't understand. Like, why would you be support? And then first thing you hear is, okay, they make a lot of money, so they want to pay less taxes. So you hear people like Charles Barkley and stuff like that who are like, I'm a Republican, I make a lot of money, I want to pay less taxes, right? So when I started to really dig and be like, with the older Republicans, like I met some really old Republican minorities, and I'm like, how the hell are you a Republican? They were trying to kill you. And they were like, well, Republicans were the main party of the minority when I was coming up. And here's another big thing they have said, and this has kind of come true. They said Republicans bring more money to minority communities. And from what I've seen so far, kind of been a little true, like from seeing what they've done versus the other ones have done. And of course, it makes sense because they come from business and they have more business contacts with more money, so they can throw more money to the community. But I do feel like there's not as much of a care for what happens in the community as on the Democratic side, because most of the people that I've seen, the Amanda Septimos, the AOCs, they're literally sitting where we sit. They are us. And then they go into politics and they say, that was messed up. I remember when we had to deal with that. I'm going to try to fix that. So to me, I don't think the Republican side is doing that. So, all right, Ricardo, thanks again. Thanks for asking questions too, Ricardo. I super appreciate it. Personally, I think celebrities shouldn't be able to endorse any candidates because almost no one does the homework and they will follow their favorite celebs off the cliff. I agree 1000%. And that's why I think what the 50 Cents and the Lil Waynes of the world are doing is super irresponsible, but it's all for self, right? They just want to pay less taxes because if you're a Lil Wayne and you make 20 million a year, and you know on that 19.6 million, you're going to have to pay more tax. You're going to want to pay less tax. So you're going to do that. But then by convincing the public who is not going to, they're probably going to pay more tax, you are wrong. And I'll tell them this to their face. Like that's messed up. Right. And if it's selfish, it's just selfish, right? Because there's more poor people and you were poor at one point. So if you can't go back and think to that level and say, all right, what happens if I didn't get lucky the way I did? Where would I be? It would be nice to have healthcare and a college education that I didn't have to pay for, or I paid less for, or whatever, because then I would more likely be able to have a decent life. Right. So that's where I come down on that stuff. And if, again, you shouldn't talk about politics if you're in business. And one of my biggest clients, Republican, many of my partners, Republicans, right? So I'm not saying you just like find Republicans and say, oh, you're a-holes or you're racist and F you, right? I'm saying be involved, have the conversations, understand the other side of humanity in this case, right? And try to work together. Because right now, I'm in meetings that I wouldn't be in if I didn't decide that, right? If I decided opposite. Like, for instance, that vote by mail thing, I'm involved in it. If I didn't work with a Republican, I wouldn't be in on that, right? If I said, no, I'm just not going to work with those people. I'm not going to talk to those people. I'm not going to try to address what I think needs to be addressed. And by having those conversations is why I'm in on that now, right? Versus if I just said, oh, he's Republican, he's racist, even though he's black or Hispanic, he's racist against his own people or her own people, I wouldn't be involved in that one project, right? And that one project could be very instrumental to society, right? It may never make me a dime, but it depends again on what your idea of success is, right? If your idea of success is money, then sure, only do things that are for the money. But if your idea of success, and this is mine, is impact, right? How many people can you help by doing what you do? Then money is not the most impactful thing, right? Because I can help a lot more people than giving $1 million to some organization, a nonprofit. If I help multiple ideas become reality in a community that can help thousands and thousands of people in that community, right? So that's why I do things like I was on a board for one of the biggest Bronx organizations, served 60,000 people. Didn't make any money, but I was trying to help that organization do better for those people, right? And they brought me in because I'm a technology guy, and I'm saying, you can do this like that, you can do this like that, and that helps their organization, right? So in this case, with this vote by mail thing, they brought me in as an advisor, as a tech advisor, and I say, oh, I think you should do this, this, and that. And then as a networker, I brought people to the table because there was an opportunity to invest in the company, right? And I'm working with funds, I'm working with people with money to try to get them to invest in startups. So I was able to bring something to the table. And it wouldn't happen if I just like blocked out anybody who's there, right? So at the end of the day, like many people, if you know me and you're on my Facebook, personal Facebook, I'm always arguing with Republicans. But I'm basically just trying to get them to see the other side, right? And I'm trying to understand their side too. I'll be honest. I want to understand. Like somebody once told me this about myself, and I didn't even realize it till they said it. They were like, you listen to anybody and you may not want to, you may waste a lot of your time. And I remember thinking, I think I do that because I honestly believe I can learn from anybody. And I don't care what level of whatever they are, there's something they could teach me. And if they're talking to me, I'm looking for it. I'm looking for the thing I can learn from them. And that's the case with these Republicans, right? Like I don't agree with them, but I know there's something I can learn from them and maybe something they can learn from me, right? So that's how I look at it, right? And when you think about this Trump Biden thing, tomorrow there's going to be some unhappy people, some happy people, and there may be some civil unrest. And I hope not, because I'm going to be outside of the country. But I think if you are an entrepreneur, this whole show, this whole thing, I'm doing this to really start to make you start to see, and maybe it's not right now, maybe it's not in this 4 years, but definitely local level. If you are wherever you are, you should be finding out who is your local community board, who is your local congressman, assemblyman, I forget all the branches right now, but anybody local, you want to know them and you want them to know you. The borough presidents, their staff, all those people, the more they know you, the more opportunity you will get. I'm telling you. And it's happened to me. There's projects I'm working on right now because of my relationships with local government officials, where they were like, oh, hire Miguel. I see Miguel 30 times and he's the tech guy we ask whenever we have questions. I would hire him. Okay, we're going to hire him, right? So, or his team. So I think if you are, whatever you're doing, whatever business, it will benefit you no matter how early. I wish I would have done it earlier. I wish I would have known this earlier, and I would have had more contacts by now, right? It also pushes whatever you're doing along faster because you have more networking potential, right? So if you need, like, I remember having, I gave you a few examples already. We were trying to build a fund, and a politician gave us a contact, a warm contact to one of the top fund managers in New York City right now. And we met with him multiple times. And even right now, he'll take our call right now because of that introduction, right? And how hard would that have been to do without that introduction? Very hard. And then that's probably happened multiple times with different politicians, right? So it's not just like for yourself, you also will start to understand your community more, what your community needs, how you can provide services to your community, right? And of course, me as a tech guy, I've been thinking more and more, and I have for many years, how could I use the tech I know to help the community? Because right now the tech I work on is really more focused on advertising, marketing, because that's where I came from, right? But then from being in the community, I started to see startups that were trying to solve problems, and I started to try to help them. I did help them. They raised money, and things happened in those communities that wouldn't have happened if I didn't stick my mind in those conversations, and be in those conversations because of the political connections, right? So tomorrow's going to be a tough day. We're going to see, how it's all going, and I will be traveling, so I'm not going to do the show tomorrow. But I think whichever way things go down, we can still win, right? So don't think person X gets in, we're screwed. Person Y gets in, we're screwed. Trump versus Biden, whoever gets in, you could still do good. Hustlers do well with whoever is in there. So it's really up to, the big thing I tell you is why I say start some type of side hustle, because there could be, just because of COVID and all that, which that's a whole nother thing with this administration, there could be a lot less work, right? And if you are only relying on one stream of revenue, that's a dangerous place to be right now. For the next few years, everybody, Democrat, Republican, rich, ultra rich, everybody is thinking that right now. And when everybody's thinking something like that, you need to be thinking it, right? And they're preparing themselves. So that's why I'm making a lot of this to really motivate people, and I am. I'm really happy with how many people I've been motivating to start, to try, because it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take time to do anything. This content thing, the business, get it right, try, fail, get people to buy. All that stuff is gonna take time, but it's might as well be starting right now. Again, right? Second best time to plant trees is today. So again, I thank anybody who's watched this all the way. Please like it wherever you watched it. And please subscribe to my YouTube and my Twitch if you use Twitch. I'm trying to get my Twitch numbers up because I'm trying to make money on Twitch too. Multiple revenue streams, right? And actually this week I'm going to the Dominican Republic to finish my property, Airbnb property on the beach in Dominican Republic. You're going to see that content too. Multiple revenue streams, like I've been telling you. And I'm also going to figure out ways for multiple people to be able to benefit from those revenue streams. Ricardo definitely got me motivated. And the reason I started, thank you, Ricardo. I'm super proud of that and proud of you for doing it. And I grew up with Ricardo. Me and Ricardo went to grade school together, right? In the hood. We went to school in Harlem together. I grew up in the Bronx and I went to grade school in Harlem. Me and Ricardo know each other from then. And we follow each other through social media. And I posted something and he did it, right? And now he's creating content, right? And he's benefiting from it. So I hope somebody else, more people are doing that, and please just let me know the same way he did, because it's good to know the impact, right? I'm not making money off anybody, but the impact is there, right? That if he changes his life because of it, and just by hearing something I said, that makes me happy. I don't care if I make $1 million. That makes me happy. I'm gonna make $1 million too, though. But thank you for watching, and again, innovate every day, and vote. Bye.